Hey guys, welcome to our new set of video tutorial in which we are going to demonstrate about the different design patterns that we have. So that if you are new to Java design pattern, I would request you to subscribe to our channel and go through this tutorial. This will not only help you to develop you as an individual, but also it will enhance your skill set in designing and developing better applications. So today we will be dealing with a behavioral design pattern, which is a chain of responsibility design pattern. So what is a chain of responsibility design pattern? So this pattern is used to achieve loose coupling in software design. So normally we come across the term called loose coupling. This is mainly used in order to reduce interdependency between modules, and in this particular process, a request from the client is passed to a chain of objects to process them. So basically, this chain of responsibility design pattern is like it will go through a chain of objects in order to process that. So what it actually means, we'll see in the real life demo. Okay, and let's begin with IntelliJ. So I have created a project of chain of responsibility in which it's just a backbone, a bare minimum configurations are there, which says that in pom.xml we are referring that it's the Java version is 1.8. We have created a package called com.application. We are going to create an interface initially. So we'll call a interface and name it as calculator chain. Okay. So this calculator chain interface will have two methods. Okay, so the first method is public void next chain, so that you know uh, I'll tell you what each of this means. Okay, so there is one method which will determine the next chain, and there will be another method which will actually print the output. So we can say calculate. Okay, and it will take I'd say a request entity is the request. Okay, so based on the different request entity, where like we will be dealing with a calculator operation, so it will be addition, multiplication, subtractions, division. So the request entity is kind of a class. Okay, which we will let's ensure that this particular class will be in the package called model. And in this model, what we'll do is this request entity class will take two elements, int number one. Okay, and it will take another element which is number two, right? And it will take the operation name. So we just need to provide the name of the operations, right? So we'll go with the constructor, which will take in all the parameters, and we'll also go ahead with the getter methods because we want to access those entities afterwards. Okay, fine enough, right? So our request entity class has two attributes, number one, number two, and another string attribute which will take the operation. So operation is kind of like whether it's add or multiplication or division. So that's the based on that criteria, it's gonna take up the responsibility. So let's go to this calculator chain once again, and we will be creating two classes which will actually implement this particular calculator chain. So let's make the class as addition chain, right? So this addition chain will implement calculator chain. So since it implements calculator chain, we need to implement both the methods, right? So initially, the only step that is required over here is we need to create um, a private attribute of calculator chain and we'll call it as chain, right? So this next chain is related to the chain that we are passing as the parameter. So this will be like this dot chain is equals to chain, right? Sorry for the typing mistake. So whatever chain we pass through as a parameter to this method is now being assigned to this particular chain, right? So in this calculate method, what we'll write is we'll specify like if request dot get if request dot get operation dot equals ignore case, say it's add, then what it will do is it will actually calculate int result equals to request dot get number one plus request dot get number two. Fair enough, right? And it will print the addition of request dot get number one and let me copy this stuff, and it will be request dot get number two is plus it will be the result, correct? Now the question comes up is what about the other option, like if the get operation is not equals to add, then what next? So over here what we are doing is we are kind of transferring the operation to the next chain. So whichever chain we pass it over here, say if it is addition chain, then we want that it should move to subtraction chain, and then it moves to multiplication, then it moves to division. So whichever chain that we want to ensure it goes forward, okay, that we will specify. So here we will specify like this dot chain dot calculate, and we will pass this request as the parameter, right? So we can specify like this is transferring it to the next chain, okay? So let's quickly go ahead and we will be creating a few more classes, okay? So we'll call it as subtraction chain, okay? We will call it let's specify that it implements calculator chain, and it will implement both the methods. So I'll just copy the logic that we normally have over here, okay, because it's gonna be almost the same, okay. So it will also have this calculated chain, it will have the same method of next chain because kinds of overriding the method that we have in the interface, and this calculate is the method which is also being overridden over here. So the only difference is instead of this it will be minus, correct, and it will provide the result as subtraction. Okay, so this is what we are. Or now if it is not subtraction, okay, if it is not sub, then we are transferring it to the next chain of action. So what is the next chain that we will declare afterwards, so if it is not subtract, it will go to the next chain, it will transfer it to the next chain. So let us quickly make another two classes quickly. One is say multiplication chain, okay, and let me first create a class of division chain, and then we will copy and implement the same, okay. Okay, so in this particular class we'll have the same options, right? So we'll just write implements, sorry, right? So the next chain will be remaining the same. The calculate method will only have the difference over here and the operation type, so it will be division, right? Else Now let us consider that it is the end chain. Okay. Mm, so instead of transferring it, now it will print like we only have options like add, subtract, multiplication, and division, right? So we can say, please, sorry, please select from one of them. Fair enough. So we have only the other class left, that is multiplication chain. Let me quickly specify the methods. So it's implement calculator chain. Okay. So same, it has this next chain, and where we'll pass the value of the next change to this, and here it will be multiplication. Sorry, and it will be kind of, instead of plus, it will be multiplication, right? Now let us have a client class from where we will be kind of demonstrating this entire logic. So it will have the main method, right? Now what we need is we need to create four classes. Okay. Object instance of the four classes, right? So we'll have calculator chain add equals to new addition chain, right? Then what we'll do is we'll say calculator chain subtract equals to new subtraction chain, right? What else? We'll write multiplication equals to new multiplication chain, right? And then we'll have the last one, which is division, right? So division chain. Cool enough? Now what is the first thing that we need to do? The thing is, we need to ensure that this addition chain need to have the next chain specified, right? So we need to do that initially. Fine. So what I am going to do is I'm just writing add dot next chain, and what should be the next chain is like subtraction. So if not addition, so what does it mean? It means that the next chain is subtraction. So when I go to the calculate and it is not addition, the request dot get operation is not addition, it will go to the next chain calculate method. So what is the next chain calculate method? Since it's subtraction is the next chain we are passing over here. Okay, so it will now call the subtraction class, calculate method. Fair enough. So similarly, we'll call subtract dot next chain and we'll put it as multiplication, right? Similarly, we'll put multiplication dot next chain as division. Fair enough. Now let's test the scenario. Okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a request entity. Okay, and I'll say it as request equals to new request entity. Now it will take the first number, so let us create a first number as 20, and let us create the second number as 30, and let's put the number string operation as multiplication. Fair enough. Okay, now what we will be doing is, now I do not know that I need to call this multiplication chain or division chain or subtraction chain. I am not aware of. Okay, and since it is loosely coupled, the user do not need to know which particular chain is going to take the responsibility for this multiplication. So I'm just going to add, or I'm just going to call the very first chain which is doing me the handling operation, right? So what I'll do is I'll just call I'll just call add, which is the calculator chain. Okay, and I'll just say, and I'll just pass this request. Okay, and what it will do is, so initially what will happen over here is when I call add.calculate, it goes inside this calculate method. Okay, and but initially we said that the next chain of addition should be subtraction, so it goes inside this, it finds it's not add. Okay, so it calls this subtractions calculate method. So when it goes to subtraction calculate method, it checks for subtraction. It finds that no, it's not subtraction, it's so it's multiplication kind of I'm finding. So it checks for what is the next chain. So it says it's multiplication, right? So it then goes to the multiplication chain. Now here it finds that okay, I got the reference, it is multiplication now, and it will return the result. If not, it will go to the next chain. And similarly, the chain of responsibility goes ahead, right? So let's see what the output is, right? Right, so here we are. So here we can find that, see, addition of 20 and 36. Actually, I made a mistake because I didn't, make the change over here. It should be multiplications, right? So let me quickly make this change. I'm really sorry for that. And I think over division, we still had that because since we copied, we just forgot to, we forgot to mention the change over here. Okay. So if I run this piece of code once again, we can see that you know the output that we are having is multiplication of 20 and 30 is 600. So similarly, let's do a couple of more thing. What we'll do is we'll just kind of ensure it's division. Okay, and let me give it as 200 and let it be say 20. Okay, so if I run this piece of code now, what happens is it will now return me the division of both the values. Okay, so it's 10. So you see that we are calling this add. Okay, and we are going ahead with this, the responsibility is being shared between multiple chains, right? So what if I go with some different operation like modulus, right, which is not mentioned in this chain? So what happens in this particular scenario? Correct, because now we selected modulus, which doesn't have a scenario at this particular point, right? So when it goes inside modulus and it do not finds any particular reference to this chain, so it goes from addition chain, it moves to subtraction chain, from subtraction chain it moves to multiplication chain. Okay, from there it moves to division because it's going from chain of responsibilities, and over division it finds that it goes inside else. And since it do not find any option from here, it returns the option that we have specified, right? So let's come here once again. Okay, so what it says, like it's like a request from the client is being passed to a chain of objects to process them. Okay, and later the object in the chain will decide themselves who will be processing the request. Same here, right? So if I pass the attribute as addition, okay, so it would have been like an addition operation, right? So it is the chain which will decide that which particular attribute needs to be executed. Okay, and what are the different responsibility of a chain of responsibility pattern? This actually basically comes up with like decoupling a sender and receiver of a command. Like the sender, I do not need to ensure that which particular chain is going to take the responsibility. I'm just sending it to the first chain and let it go through. Whichever chain has the required logic will take it up, or else it will move it to the next chain. So it's like picking a processing strategy at a processing time. So it's kind of picking up a strategy at the very runtime or processing time, right? So now, what are the different advantages that we have? First of all, it reduces coupling degree. There is no sort of tight coupling is there. If a class is going to take up the responsibility, it will take up like addition operation. If it is not, then it will move it to the next chain. So it's very loosely coupled, and it's very simplified objects. The object do not need to know the chain structure. As simple, fair enough, right? Because this addition chain do not need to know about the subtraction chain and multiplication chain and division chain. It only needs to ensure what is the next chain of action. If it meets the scenario like this, it will execute, else it will transfer it to the next chain of action, right? And enhancing the flexibility, it's obviously something which is more flexible. But there is a disadvantage. The request must be received. You need to ensure that in this particular scenario, first of all, this request, like the operation that you are passing, this needs to be passed. the request should come up, else it will not be flexible. Okay. uh, the second is performance of the system may get affected. Yes, that is true. See, in if we have multiple number of chains, since it's a calculator operator or a calculator operation or very simple application, it's perfectly fine. But let's consider it's an e-commerce process or something related to a travel management or hospital management, where we want to use that chain of responsibility pattern. It will be kind of performance issue, because and there is a lot of chain that has to be processed in order to execute functionality, right? So performance can be one of the critical concept that comes up into picture. And what is the real world? Where do we see this chain? If you have ever worked on a servlet filter, when we create a custom filter, normally to handle a HTTP request, we prefer to write certain filters in Java. So if you are familiar with that custom filter, there is something called as chain.do filter request and response. So what this chain do? You remember there is a filter chain, and we say a filter chain dot do filter request and response. So kind of we are saying that that if we need to process the request, it will be request, it will in that filter class method, either we are processing the request and then we are passing it to the next chain of filter. So this is how we are actually dealing with this behavioral pattern, which is chain of responsibility design pattern. I think it's fair enough, and I think I am able to reach out to you and make you understand the concept in a very lucid and simple way. If you have any question, please do comment and let me know if you are stuck somewhere. And happy learning. Stay tuned to our new tutorial that we will be posting on design pattern, because it's a promise from my end that if you go through each of the tutorials that we are going to post very soon, you will be a master of design pattern. So thank you so much for watching. Stay tuned. Have a nice day. Thank you so much. Bye.